Yo, what up? This is D-Night, and you're listening to the Pardon the Interaction podcast. My, we've had so much going on. For starters, in case you missed it, we've got a new addition to the Par and Pie family, Tara Dublin. Make sure you go follow her on Twitter at Tara Dublin Rocks. Also, pick up a copy of her book while you're at it. Make her day, The Sound of Settling. A very fun and interesting read compared to the things we talk about on this podcast. But yeah, we're heading toward the do or die time for the 2024 election. Go ahead and hit up JoeBiden.com. Get that man like $1 a month or something. Help his campaign staff up and get prepared to try and save our democracy. And make sure to grab like one other person you know and tell them about the podcast. Make sure they subscribe and tune in every single week. We got a lot of things coming up for you this year. We need all the support that we can get. So if you do your part and help us grow our audience, we'll do our part and help elect Joe Biden in 2024 and save American democracy. And this is the Pardon the Interaction podcast. Yo, what up? This is your boy D-Night, and you're listening to the Pardon the Interaction podcast. No, it's been a couple weeks since we dropped an episode. The holiday season's been pretty crazy. Carol's out of the country as we speak. Ty was a little sick. I was slammed at work. So yeah, we took an extra week off. I know we've had a lot of news breaking in the last couple of weeks as well. You know, all the crazy nonsense with fake Congressman-elect George Santos in his sketchy background. We got Trump's tax returns. The J6 committee finally released their report before Republicans take over the House in the next session of Congress. It's wild times, man. The committee's also dropping multiple depositions with lots of fun and interesting facts and no's. And by fun and interesting, I mean quite fucking damning, right? It's going to be really interesting seeing how the committee and their work impacts actual criminal investigations going forward. You know, in some ways, it's interesting to think about what the committee is doing with these depositions, which in some fashion I wish hadn't been released to the public, because it can have potential negative consequences on DOJ's investigation. Because if you think about it, in a way, having these depositions go public, what it does is it gives other witnesses and potential targets of the investigation the opportunity to get their stories together. Hey, look, this is what investigators will know from the testimony of other witnesses. Now we can align our stories in such a fashion that we only give away as much information as is contained in these depositions, right? And on the other side of the coin, to some degree, the committee's work, including and especially their report, kind of grieves the slide for the American public to accept charges against Trump. Should Special Counsel Jack Smith's office decide to bring them against Trump for his actions related to January 6th and the plot to overturn the 2020 election in general. And I can imagine that the January 6th committee they probably had the option to decline to make the actual depositions public, but under threat from incoming House Republicans to selectively release depositions to negatively impact the work of the committee. I mean, you can see they were probably caught between a rock and a hard place, and they decided that the best option was transparency. To just put it all out there and let the public see the evidence for themselves, draw their own conclusions. We also got Trump's tax returns. That was a total bleep show. All of his claims that he's a successful billionaire businessman or blown to smithereens. He is either one of the worst businessmen in the history of the world, where he appears to either have lost hundreds of millions of dollars over the course of half a decade, with his only profitable years appearing to be while he was actually president, or he's either one of the most fraudulent, corrupt businessmen in the history of America, where he appears to have executed a massive tax fraud scheme where he's massively underreported his revenue to the IRS in order to pay no taxes, or in some cases receive massive multi-million-dollar tax returns. So that should be interesting. I imagine under the Biden administration with the new head of the IRS that we'll be seeing a number of future investigations into his financial dealings as well. Happy 2023, kids. It's going to be a fun year. Fun year. Well, all right. What I have in store for you this episode is our patented Twitter Ask Me Anything segment. In this case, it would be Ask a Negro. White people out there, I suggest you not actually say the name of that segment out loud. It's okay for you to listen. Just don't repeat that. I don't want bad things to happen to you. All right. First off, we have Yvonne Andes. That's at Andes_Yvonne, who asks, what are your thoughts on Giuliani, Eastman, and Flynn getting indicted? Soon or never going to happen? Well, it's my personal opinion that in the first batch of indictments from the special counsel's office, at least as it pertains to the 2020 election, first on the list will be Jeffrey Clark from DOJ, one of the main architects of the fake elector scheme, who seems to have the most criminal exposure in this case. I think if the special counsel's office is able to establish the fraudulent elector scheme as a criminal conspiracy, that once he goes down and they've established like a roadmap for prosecution for that particular criminal scheme, that Giuliani and Eastman will be next on the list, right? As far as Flynn is concerned, I imagine what DOJ will have to do is work their way up the chain, securing indictments and guilty pleas, and establishing cooperating witnesses who will have insights on the incriminating evidence that they could use to prosecute Flynn. It'll be hard to tie him directly to violence at the Capitol on 1/6 or the fake elector scheme or any of the other criminal enterprises Trump is engaged in trying to overturn the 2020 election. So first Clark, then Eastman and Giuliani, then they'll work their way up the chain to Flynn, Stone, etc. Okay, next up we have Dars. That is at Dars Lens WV. I'm assuming you're from West Virginia. Who ask Ravens or Steelers? Well, the Ravens and Steelers are currently playing as we speak. I believe Pickett is the quarterback for the Steelers. I saw him trip and fall and get tackled by Casper the Friendly Ghost earlier in this game. So with that in mind, I'm going to go with the Ravens. If you want like actual football analysis, I mean, I don't think either of the quarterbacks of these teams at the moment, Pickett or Hundley at the moment, are particularly good. Nor are either of these rosters, just from my personal perspective. But you do have two good coaches in Tomlin and Harbaugh. That's a divisional game. Man, anything can happen in these games. You know how it goes. Just look across the league every week. It's crazy how these divisional rivalries always match up, especially in the AFC North. You never really tell. All right. Curtis D. at Curtis Dush ask predictions on who was cooperating with the DOJ. Well, given what happened with Robert Mueller's investigation and the number of cooperating witnesses that he had procured early on in that investigation, I would say it's impossible to fucking guess at this point how many people are cooperating with DOJ, right? We got a number of guilty pleas, especially from the right-wing militia groups like the Oath Keepers and Proud Boys and whatnot. But more off the radar, or maybe more on the radar, depending on how you look at it. If you think about who in Trump's administration could have possibly had foreknowledge of what Trump had planned as far as January 6th was concerned, number one on my list would be Mark fucking Meadows. Like, that guy is at the center of fucking everything. He has all the fucking dirt. He's implicated in nearly everyone's testimony to the January 6th committee. His text messages are super fucking incriminating. He seems to be... He's... It's funny that you consider the chief of staff to basically be like the person most intimately familiar with the president's comings and goings. It's no different in this case with Mark Meadows and Trump. He seems to be basically the number two in charge as it comes to the criminal conspiracy surrounding Trump's attempt to overthrow the election. Right? So we have all this information about Meadows' communications and his comings and goings and all this damning information. Why the fuck hasn't he been indicted yet? Well, the only explanation that I can surmise is that he's cooperating with the DOJ. Like, there should absolutely be a target on his back. If he's not cooperating, he's about to get indicted. And because he hasn't been indicted after all of this, like, I can only assume he's cooperating. Yeah. Okay, next up, Sassy Panties. It's a lovely name there. Whose handle is @ThisTwitIsLit. It's also fire. It has a comment along with an image and says that, thought this was interesting. Did she die 3 times? She would be referring to the mother of one George Santos, fraudulent, lying ass con artist grifter representative-elect in New York, whose mother's name is Fatina DeVolder, who appears to have died in both December of 2016 and also 2022. And also, according to George Santos himself, was the victim who died in the 9/11 attacks on the Twin Towers there. So, yeah, that's fucking... it's a fucking interesting turn of events we have here. I mean, good luck figuring out what's actually legit with this guy, or even his mother for that matter. Like, who the fuck knows? No idea. All right, next up we have Together We Rise. That is @Diane_23, who asked, will Jack Smith / DOJ go after Jenny Thomas and members of Congress? Well, for starters, as I was saying, I do believe special counsel will initially go after Jeffrey Clark, and if he's successful from there, a number of other people will be indicted. And I do imagine, at the very least, there are a handful of members of Congress who were in on this fake elector plot, from the creation of the plot itself to its implementation to signing up the fake electors, to transporting the fraudulent votes to Washington, D.C. In the days before the January 6th certification of Biden's electors, and delaying the actual certification itself. I am absolutely certain that should the initial prosecutions for the fake elector plot be successful, that a number of the members of Congress who were involved will be indicted. As for Jeannie Thomas, oh man, it's tough. It's 50-50, bro. It's really difficult to tell the extent of Jeannie Thomas's involvement, whether she was just cheerleading on the sidelines or whether she was like intimately familiar with the plot. She's definitely the connection between John Eastman and Jeffrey Clark in their plot, and then her husband, Clarence Thomas, who's sitting on the Supreme Court, who they were hoping would rule on all this nonsense in favor of Trump somehow. So I can't say for certain that DOJ will end up indicting Jenny, but I'm absolutely certain that Jack Smith gives no fucks, and if the evidence warrants an indictment, he'll pull the trigger. I'm sure they will actually look into it, unlike Liz Cheney. All right, next up, Don Corleone. It's a pretty fucking awesome Godfather reference there, whose handle is at BET29, asked, do you believe there will be J6 charges for Donald J. Trump? Well, what I'll say is, as far as my opinion is concerned, that there absolutely will be charges against Trump, at least as far as the classified documents investigation goes, right? Like, that thing is almost as cut and dry as any fucking criminal espionage investigation ever. Like, we got the dude is caught red-handed. Like, not only does he have the documents, but he's misplaced them, he's lied, he's obstructed the investigation. He had them in his fucking office, so there's no like, there's no defense as to why he could have had them in his office, intermingled with his own personal effects, after telling DOJ that he turned everything over. Like, I mean, he's just caught fucking red-handed. As far as January 6th goes, it gets a little more complicated from there. Like, it's going to be one thing to connect him directly with the plot to actually attack Congress on January 6th, although enough evidence is there that maybe you could convince a jury who's friendly to the prosecution's presentation, I would imagine. But the evidence is much more clear-cut when it comes to charging him with obstructing an official proceeding, and even more clear-cut when it comes to this fraudulent elector scheme. Right, so that the evidence is there to at least bring charges. Will he be convicted? I don't know. Like, that's not something I can predict. Like, prosecutors talk about the nature of juries all the time and how difficult it is to predict individual jurists' response to evidence, the way it's presented, the way prosecutors lay out a case. Like, it's beyond my expertise. It's like, that's something I can't speak to. But charges are coming. I can assure you that. The evidence is overwhelming and extremely damning, especially if you've read the January 6th committee's report. And I would imagine, given the wealth of information DOJ has obtained through search warrants and cooperating witnesses, that we've only seen the tip of the iceberg. Okay, back to Sassy Panties here. But while he was asking for $9,000 for her funeral, by the way, if her ashes were sent back to Brazil to be interred, I cannot find any burial for her in Brazil, and I know that Catholics do not prefer cremation. A local church took up donations for the family for her wake. This is George Santos' mother, who apparently has died more times than fucking Jesus. Like, this bitch just be coming back. Fucking zombie. I don't know what the fuck is going on. So yeah, more fraudulent stories from this guy. Good God, this shit is fucking endless. Like, how does this dude not resign yet? Jesus Christ. All right, Rita Powell at Rizabelle POW asks, how much did you miss me? All right, on to the next question. The gnome, that is at Dave Gant's Mind, who asks, when will this country live up to its potential and unite against the threat within and without, embrace diversity, and lead the world with a true moral compass? Well, sir, if you're familiar with American history at all, you would know that this country is incapable of leading with a true moral compass. Like, we do good with the platitudes and setting high expectations for other countries that we can't possibly meet ourselves. And this country as a whole has never embraced diversity. I mean, I think that goes without saying. Like, you just look across American history, like, anyone viewed as different. Basically, any non-white hetero male was not treated as an equal, whether that be women or black people or brown people, the Chinese. Like, you just Look throughout our history. Self-explanatory. I mean, the Nazis came to us not for our views on anti-Semitism, but like how to get away with it. Like, because for hundreds of years, America managed to present to the world this image of freedom and equality, while also oppressing millions of black people at the same time. And the Nazis were like, well, damn, why can't we do that with the Jewish community? Like, why can't we treat them the same way America treats black people and get away with it? And they tried. So I would like to say, this country has never really taken the white supremacist domestic terrorist threat seriously. Like, in a way, if you think about it, even the Klan was basically overlooked for 100 years as far as what it stood for and its threat to its own citizens. I don't think this country ever has taken it seriously, and until those similar sentiments resulted in an attack on the United States Capitol and Congress, they were completely ignored. And because, a significant proportion of the population sides with the fucking terrorists. Like, I don't even know if it's possible that we'll ever reach a point where this country will live up to its potential in that area. I was a real fucking doubter, bro. Sorry. Alright, Miss Mitten, that is at Kursky_ here, asks, do you think Trump will ever face reckless driving charges after lunging for the wheel of the beast at the Will Be Wild? Well, first of all, it appears as though he wasn't actually in the presidential limousine. He was in one of the armored SUV transports. A vehicle that would make it more conducive for him to actually reach from the back across to the front and grab the driver. So that's one small important detail that even makes the story feasible. Will he face charges for that? No. Absolutely not. I know that testimony was riveting and the story was absurd because it was like, oh, this really paints a picture. Like, it's not going to be evidence that's extremely valuable as it pertains to like criminal charges or even proving culpability at a trial. But for like painting the picture of where Trump was mentally in the moment, it does a fantastic job of that. So yeah, no charges are going to stem from that. But yeah, it's a fucking crazy ass story, huh? All right, next up, Boom Drummer at Boom Drummer 2 says, who the hell is investigating his citizenship? And I'm assuming that's, again, George Santos. Not here legally equals no seat in Congress. Oh man, Republicans are all against illegal immigration until it's one of their own, huh? Yeah, Santos was likely born in Brazil. I agree. Given the nature of his mother's birth records, we have yet to see a birth certificate of his own or a record of naturalization. And he says it's also very simple to clarify one way or the other. Yes, it is. You think if he was a citizen, it'd be very easy to prove that and provide public information. And that goes without saying. Like, I can go get my birth certificate. It takes like an hour. Like an hour total for me to like put on clothes and drive down to the fucking building and show them my ID and get them to print me off a fucking copy. Like, all of that together takes about a fucking hour. This fucking guy. Jesus. Alright. Alice's Monkey. That is at Megan W303733169. That was a bunch of fucking numbers. Please change that handle immediately. Ask, is he even gay? Again, I guess that's another George Santos reference who proclaimed to be an openly gay congressman-elect who appears to have lied about being married to a woman as recently as a few months before his run for Congress. I understand the difficulties associated with people coming out of the closet and being open about their sexual orientation because of the perceived potential backlash they'll get from loved ones and friends and family and the public at large. But rarely have I ever seen anyone lie about being gay like the opposite direction. They're like straight, but they like come out as gay for like I don't even know why the fuck you would do. Like, what are you doing? Like, bro, I've never heard anyone like lie up about like they lie about the number of dicks they sucked in their life, but they lied up like it was they lied. They like told you they sucked more than they actually have. Like, who does that? Like, bro, what the fuck? What? It doesn't make any sense. It's insane. All right, Ben Birch, that's at Ben Birch 93, says, I believe the real quote unquote George Santos was a missing person whose identity was stolen by the man now using the name. Like, I don't even know if he's like, the dude is like an incredibly gifted fraud to have like gotten this far in life on that shit. But like, I can't imagine like he stole the name from, like he assumed the identity of someone who's actually named George Santos and like pulled this off. But if he did, the investigators are going to find out. They're going to find out. All right, Pedro USA. Let's at Pedro Oro Blanco. Ask, will any media entity offer to the makers of Atlanta everything to make new episodes? Now imagine if that entity hadn't been blown up in a stupid ass deal that it's entirely possible they could have picked up Atlanta and extended it for a couple of seasons. I seriously doubt like Netflix or fucking Apple or anything like that might be interested in buying the property. And it's not like, it's not like Disney going to Netflix and buying its properties back. So, it's not, I don't know. Probably not. And Atlanta's pretty fucking dope. So it's unfortunate. Shit happens though. It's the nature of television, especially these days. Okay, Wads1234 links to an article from Raw Story about Kevin McCarthy giving in to demands from Matt Gaetz in the MAGA wing of the Republican Party. Kevin, in his quest to be Speaker of the House yet again, is being hamstrung by the more extreme wing of his party, demanding concessions from him that include a change to House rules, making it easier to call a vote to oust the Speaker of the House and have them replaced, lowering the threshold from 5 members to 1, I guess with the intention being that should the right-wing extremists not be happy with his performance, they can always threaten to hold it over his head, that it only takes a single member to call a vote of no confidence and have his ass replaced. Yeah, good luck, bro, handling this fucking shit show. You're not a fucking Nancy Pelosi. Like, the incredibly deft job she's done over the years keeping her caucus together as the Speaker of the House and as House Minority Leader, like, you'll never live up to that, dog. And you are going to see just what a fucking difficult job it is, especially with this slim of a majority in the House. Good luck to you, homie. You gonna need that shit. Okay, Susanna McCoy at Susanna McCoy 19 says, I have absolutely no belief that Donald Trump will ever be indicted. He's rich, white, and connected. What are your thoughts? Well, apart from being white and connected, we don't necessarily know how rich he is or isn't, given that we don't know how fraudulent all of his financial statements are. But apart from that, what's really protected him most is that he was the former president of the United States, right? Like, that office considering that he was in control of the Department of Justice for 4 years and able to install his own cronies and use the powers of his office to protect himself in various ways, along with, the support of nearly half the members of Congress and an entire right-wing disinformation network. Like, he had a lot of weapons at his disposal before he left office, and that is no longer the case, right? So, like with the Mueller investigation, for example, Mueller was in a bind for multiple reasons, one of which was that he was bound to DOJ policy, which had an Office of Legal Counsel memo stating that the president, while he was in office, could not be subject to a federal indictment. So that was one thing that was shielding him. Two, he had a number of cronies involved in hamstringing Mueller's investigation, like limiting the scope of things to which, special counsel Mueller and his office could look into. So they couldn't even do a full and complete investigation into all of the criminal allegations and activities he had been up to while he was in office in the years prior, right? And also, when you have like an attorney general, the likes of Bill Barr, to which can spin a criminally damning report with his own summary that makes Trump look less guilty than he actually is, like, that really turned the tide of public opinion against a possible future indictment of Trump for his crimes involved in that investigation. Like like the department shouldn't feel like it's subject to the whims of the public in some ways, but in other ways it is, right? Like, it just makes it incredibly difficult to even hold a trial and convince a jury that the man is guilty of crimes, no matter what kind of evidence they present, because to some degree you have like a massive war of misinformation to fight, along with trying to present the evidence and convict him of charge. Like, it's just it's some frustrating shit, right? But Trump no longer has that shield. And given the crimes he's been accused of and the massive amount of evidence available to prosecutors, I don't think he's in a position to escape charges relating to the espionage investigation from the classified documents or the obstruction of an official proceeding charges that are likely to come from January 6th. And given the way this report was handled from the January 6th committee, like, really nailing down the timeline of events and actions taken by Trump and company, like, they've already done the work of greasing the slide and getting the public in a position where they're ready to accept criminal charges against Trump, right? Like, it's almost like the total opposite of everything that happened while he was in office. So I totally understand your skepticism, and I get it, but it's not, because the circumstances were different in the past when he was able to escape criminal charges. Like, those circumstances have now changed. Like, it's a totally different scenario that we're dealing with, that he's dealing with, and the evidence is nigh insurmountable. But again, look, if your expectations are low, that just makes them easier to exceed. So one of the pieces of information we gained from the January 6th committee is an email from Katrina Pearson showing that rally organizers knew by January 2nd of 2021 that Trump would call for people to march to the Capitol, even though he had kept that secret from, like, his own staff, or the Secret Service for that matter, who was, charged with orchestrating his travel and providing protection for him and, other high-value assets, right? So the rally organizers knew Trump was planning to march down to the Capitol on January 6th. And Trump knew he was planning to march down to the Capitol on January 6th. And he knew the mob was armed on that day. Like, at least according to the information we received from the committee in the report. Like, it's really, really difficult for him to successfully argue that the attack on the Capitol was just a protest that got out of hand when there's all this pre-planning involved, right? And then, like, if it was totally on the up and up, well, why didn't he just announce it beforehand? Or why didn't he include the Secret Service in his plans to take his followers down to the Capitol and protest, right? Like, if they can truly establish the pre-planning and premeditation, like, it might even be possible for them to nail him on the seditious conspiracy charges. So these levels of internal communications, we didn't have anything nearly as concrete as this during Mueller's investigation, apart from, Don Jr.'s emails about the meeting in Trump Tower with like representatives from Russia. But again, even then, like, they lied about the nature of the meeting, and you could say that even though they lied, they'd have to prove it in court, and like, convincing a jury is tough. Well, I think they'll have a much easier time putting this information together, presenting it at a trial in such a way that the jury might possibly find them guilty. Alright, I think that does it for questions for today. Hopefully Carol and Ty will be back with us later on this week. What I do have planned for you by popular demand is a multi-episode summary / breakdown from the January 6th committee's report. Hopefully I can take the information and condense it down for you in digestible portions, and provide a clear summary of the most important evidence, a straightforward timeline, and that captures the essence of the report without the massive time-consuming investment of reading and digesting hundreds of pages of complicated materials. So you have that to look forward to. Hopefully I'll get the first 1 or 2 episodes out this week. Tell all your friends and your buddies. Okay, if you didn't have a chance to read the report, subscribe to the podcast. It'll be coming down the pipe. And I'll try to make it a little less dry and a little more entertaining than the actual report itself. So you got that to look forward to. Hope you guys have a wonderful 2023. Happy fucking New Year. We survived another year of insanity. Like, it's touch and go. Sometimes I wonder if we'll make it. Yeah, but we made it. Yeah, I appreciate you for listening. And that concludes this episode of Pardon the Insurrection.